सबसे पहले मैं हमारे परम पूज्य मुख्य अतिथि उत्तराखंड से पधारे जगत गुरु शंकराचार्य जी को अपना प्रणाम अर्पित करता हूं। आप संयम आदि शंकराचार्य की जीवंत परंपरा के प्रतीक है। आपकी उपस्थिति इस सभा को पवित्र करती है और हमारे इस विनम्र प्रयास को एक धर्म कार्य का स्वरूप देती है। Also, my greetings to every scholar, student and seeker gathered here today. I am thankful that so many of you have come from all corners of Bharat and many from lands that lie beyond. I am also deeply grateful to the Indian knowledge systems under the Ministry of Education for their support. Without their guidance, this Indology conference would not have been possible. My dear guests, let me start by explaining why we are here today and why a conference on an Indology. We are the carriers of an epic civilizational adventure that has faced invasions, rebuilt multiple times after destructions, and carried his wisdom across thousands of years with unbroken tenacity. A civilization that refuses to break is also the one that learns how to build. जो सभ्यता राख में भी अग्नि जगाती, वही हर युग में नई धरती बसाते। Fast forward to today, and there can be no doubt that over the past decade, Bharat has not only been the world's fastest growing major economy, but it has also grown to become the fourth largest economy on the planet. However, across history, no nation has sustained economic power without civilizational confidence. When a civilization knows who it is, its economy knows where it must go. The two have always been inseparable. But as we gather here today, the nature of the global battleground is rapidly changing. The gatekeepers of tomorrow will not be kings or conquerors. They will be algorithms that are silent and unseen. And these digital empires will either become the custodians of our civilizational principles or rewrite them. This is why we meet to debate Indology and to ensure that our heritage is preserved in the world that lies ahead. हम यहाँ अंतम मिलते हैं ताकि ज्ञान के दीप जलाए तथा युग युगांतरों तक भारत धर्म की धारा फैलाए. Now allow me to tell you how all of this started. And as always, behind every action sits a simple story, and here is mine. The initial years of my childhood were spent in Banaskantha in a North Gujarat. मेरा बचपन बनासकांठा के रेगिस्तान में बीता और लाखों हिंदुस्तानी बच्चों के ही तरह मेरी मां की गोद में ही मेरी पहली पाठशाला थी. Like millions of Indian children, my first classroom too was the lap of my mother. Every evening, as the golden sun set over our home, my mother would gather me and my siblings, and she would narrate episodes from our eternal epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. She, Santa Ben, would tell us the stories about Prabhu Ram's 14-year exile, Sita Mata's devotion, the engineering wonder of the bridge to Lanka, the war with Ravan, the reunion of Prabhu Ram and Sita Mata, and then Sita Mata's separation again. From the Mahabharata, she spoke about Arjun's battlefield doubts and Krishna Bhagwan's words to Arjun to rise beyond family bonds and serve the purpose of Dharma. My mother was not just telling me stories. She was doing what every Indian mother does. She was shaping my sense of duty, devotion, and Dharma. She would tell me, "Beta, રામની શક્તિ તેમના ધનુષમાં ન હતી, તેમના ધર્મમાં હતી. અને ધર્મની રક્ષા એ જ કરી શકે જે પોતાના સ્વાર્થને ભૂલીને પ્રજાના કલ્યાણ માટે પોતે દીપ બની જાય." પ્રભુ Ram's strength was never in his bow. It was in his dharma. It is only the one who forgets his own ego that can become a lamp for the welfare of his people. Every virtue in my mother's story had a name and a face. A wife like Sita, who lit the flame through the exile's night, turning her sorrow to strength and darkness to light. Brothers like Bharat and Lakshman, loyal and true, tied by Dharma in everything that they do. My mother was not just narrating the principles from our epics. She was teaching me how to live them. Mata, Prathama Guru, the mother, is indeed the first teacher. And perhaps, after all these years, it was her soft voice that resurfaced when the Ram temple was inaugurated in Ayodhya last year. In that moment, my heart turned not only to celebrations, but also to reflections on the 14 years Prabhu Ram spent in exile. जैसा कि आप सब जानते हैं, 14 साल कोई साधारण संख्या नहीं थी। वह धर्मधारा नियत काल था, जिसने ये सुनिश्चित किया कि राम अयोध्या से निकले युवराज बनकर पर लौटे देवता बनकर। He left as the crown prince of a kingdom and returned not as a king he was expected to become, but as the god destiny had shaped him to be. And as Sudipta outlined, that is when the Indology idea took shape in my mind. My dear friends, as expected, since our announcement, I have often been asked, why does Indology matter? What is the objective of a 3-day global conference on Indology? Let me first address the questions. Why does Indology matter? And to do so, let me first define what Indology means to me. It is the disciplined study of our philosophies, art, medicine, mathematics, architectures, language, and governance. From zero to Vedic algorithms, Ayurveda's healing, to Vastu harmony, Arthshastra's statecraft, to our civilization values, Indology is about how to turn ideas into institutions. And so, when we study Indology, we do not look back to live in history. We look forward so that the best of history lives through us. हम अतीत को इसलिए छूते कि राष्ट्र ज्योति उदित हो जाए, यथा अनंत काल तक भारत धर्म की किरण जगत में फैलाए. That, my friends, is the answer to the first questions, why Indology matters. My dear friends, when the roots of culture fade, the land turns dry and bare. But as long as values shine, darkness can never dare. When we speak of a civilizational setback, we often remember Nalanda. But Nalanda was not an exception. It was a pattern. Bharat's greatest injuries came from the systematic destructions of our knowledge infrastructures. Let me explain. Bakhtiyar Khilji burned Nalanda, Vikramshila, and Odantapuri. In doing so, he did not just destroy libraries, he burnt the nerve center of Asian learning. Their fall erased hundreds of years of knowledge in a single generation. Then came another form of destructions, that of self-confidence. In 1835, Britisher Thomas Macaulay declared India's vast knowledge systems of no practical use. He forced a replacement of thousands of years of our traditional educational model with a clerk producing model. This was not a policy. It was a psychological war. It broke our civilizational self-confidence. And then again came the extractions. Tens of thousands of our manuscripts on astronomy, chemistry, metallurgy, Ayurveda, all shipped to Europe, translated, patented, repackaged, and credited as a Western discoveries. Our knowledge was shamelessly stolen and ruthlessly mined. Our attackers understood one thing with chilling precision, that civilizations do not fall by swords alone. They fall when their memory is left unguarded. And so they struck not just our people, but our libraries, our universities, and our stories, knowing that if memory breaks, then civilization bends. सभ्यताएं शस्त्रों से नहीं, शिथिल हुई स्मृतियों से ही टूटती है। जहां स्मृति शून्य हो जाती, वही संस्कृति शरण में झुक जाती है। Together, they shattered our cultural confidence and fragmented the discipline of Indology itself. And so, this, my friends, is my answer to the second question, why we need a 3-day conclave on Indology. My dear friends, if those were the assaults of the past, today we face a challenge shaped differently, but just as dangerous. The new forms of invasions do not come with armies or flags. They do not even see themselves as invaders. They claim no territory, but they will seek something far more powerful, our attentions, our habits, and our imaginations. They enter offering tools that feel convenient but slowly shape how an entire society reads, thinks, and remembers. This has been the new phase of a soft warfare, control over cultural memory and a public thought. And today, this quite civilizational force has arrived in its most powerful form, artificial intelligence. The next frontier that will decide who leads and who follows. Therefore, with it comes the questions, are we ready for what comes next? My dear friends, let me begin by recognizing a simple truth. Progress cannot be paused. And in the case of AI, it has arrived like a tidal force, relentless, unbounded, and utterly transformative. Artificial intelligence is not just another step forward. It is the most powerful inventions humanity has ever unlocked. It is a force reshaping how we work, learn, govern, and even imagine. It will either be our greatest leverage or the quiet thief of our identity. And as history teaches us, every transformative breakthrough carries a dark shadow. हर बड़ा महान परिवर्तन अपनी छाया साथ लिए चलता है। जहां उजाला होता है, वहीं अंधेरा भी पलता है। Just as the brilliance of nuclear power came with consequences that the world had to adapt, contain, and defend against, AI too brings with it a darker side. One that demands defending through wisdom, responsibility, and above all, preparations. In the context of Indology, this transformative force begins with an unsettling truth. AI is already becoming the world's new teacher, the guide to our past, and the keeper of our civilizational memory. This is where the danger lies, because the mirror that AI holds up today to reflect our heritage is not our reflections. In its current state, AI has no real connections to the roots of our culture, no real understanding of the richness that has sustained us for over 5,000 years. And therefore, it threatens the very essence of the culture that defines who we are. यह हमारी संस्कृति ही नहीं, हमारे अस्तित्व के लिए भी एक चुनौती है. Allow me to now expand on the three new specific threats we now face. First is the threat of our invisibility. In the world of AI, there is a rule known as a data gravity. Manuscripts sitting in a fragmented scans are invisible to algorithms. If we do not digitize them, we are effectively erasing our own knowledge from the future. Second is the threat of a cultural compressions. Indic knowledge is deep. Concepts like dharma, shraddha, or purusharth are ecosystems of meaning requiring context and commentary. But LLMs flatten meanings. They turn dharma into duty and a moksha into salvation. Once context dies, culture dies. Third is the threat of an alien judgment. These AI models built on safety filters, rooted in Western norms, are like blindfolded gatekeepers, unable to recognize the essence of Vedic practices or the depth of our itihas. They often dismiss this ancient truth as a mythology or harmful, for they lack the cultural lens to understand them. Let me illustrate these three threats with one simple example. In the years ahead, when a child in Mumbai, a second generation Indian in Boston, or a yoga teacher in Berlin asks, "What is Dharma?" or "What is the essence of Gita?" They will not open a book or seek a teacher. They will ask a machine. And that, my friends, is the real danger. Because if our civilizations does not actively defend is a cultural and emotional frameworks, human behavior will bend not towards culture or traditions, but towards the cold logic of the machine's algorithms. This shift will be silent, gradual, and will reshape how we feel, learn, and analyze our own country. The transformation is inevitable, but it must be shaped by our intention and not by accident. So allow me to present 5 recommendations for Bharat to reclaim its intellectual agency in the age of algorithms. First, build the Bharat knowledge graph. create a single digital source of truth, connecting our text, thinker, timelines, and ideas, so that AI learns from authenticate Bharat and not borrowed interpretations. Second, create an India-centric corpus. Launch a standardized Indology benchmark to test if AI understands Nyaya, Vedanta, and our philosophies. Mandate Indian data in every foreign model. Third, strengthen the human loop. Empower scholars to analyze, refine, and correct AI systems. Establish cultural discipline. All AI operating in India must align with our knowledge traditions. Fourth, invest in a human guardians. Establish Indology AI chairs across universities. Train scholars to speak Sanskrit and Python. Mobilize corporates to co-create next-gen cultural techno experts. And finally, make every college a new Nalanda. Build campuses where ancient wisdom meets modern innovations. Build centers for Bharat behavioral science, Bharat AI ethics, and Bharat data governance. So, my dear friends, as I begin to close, let me emphasize that we stand at a moment where two civilizations meet. The civilization we know as Bharat and the civilization we have come to know as AI. One is thousands of years old, the other very new. One carries the wisdom of saints, the other the logic of algorithms. And what happens now in this decade will decide whether these two forces enrich each other or whether they confront each other. This is in our hands, and the responsibility of this scale cannot rest on the shoulders of scholars and institutions alone. Bharat's industry must also rise to its dharma and play its part. Our ancestors protected this knowledge through sacrifice, and today we must protect it through commitment. Therefore, as a beginning, I am humbled to announce a founding contributions of rupees 100 crores towards building the Bharat knowledge graph and supporting the scholars and technologists who will contribute to this Indology mission. This is the repayment of our civilizational debt. हम वह दायित्व निभा रहे हैं जो समय ने हमें सौंपा है। And I warmly invite every corporate house in our nation to stand with us and strengthen this effort. And that is why this Indology gathering is not just a conference, it is a declarations. A declarations that Bharat will not allow her culture to be fractured, diluted, or divided ever again. Our declarations that Bharat will not allow her memory to be rewritten as it was after Nalanda. Our declarations that Bharat will not allow her educations to be diluted as it was under the British chain. It is now upon us to build the data sets and algorithms that honor who we are, so that the stories our mothers told us of Prabhu Ram's sacrifices and Sita Ma's courage are never dismissed as a category called mythology. So that the principles of Dharma that our mothers shaped within us are not compressed into a hollow world called rules. So that the mantras and bhajans that our mothers sang for us are never reduced to a cold tag called content. So let this conclave be remembered for a purpose that ensures when a child in Mumbai or an Indian teenager in Boston or a seeker in a Berlin asks their machine, what is Dharma? The machine must answer with the wisdom of our mothers. The machine must answer with the truth of our Shastras, and the machine must answer with the knowledge each of you safeguards. And that, my dear friends, in the holy presence of Jagat Guru Shankaracharya ji, is the true essence of this Indology Conclave. And so, we declare only Bharat will define Bharat. भारत का इतिहास भारत खुद लिखेगा। थैंक यू। जय हिंद, जय भारत।